Smith. Here, your microphone.
So we were talking about paralysis of intellect. Last week, how many times the mind was constantly repeating some thoughts about others. Other means anything, any person outside you. The mind said, I don't feel good, I'm upset. No, that is also the paralysis of intellect. If we understand clearly, then what happened? No, I understand it clearly, but still these thoughts are there. So when these thoughts are there, the mind plays a trick. No, I understand. But what should I do if other is agitating me? Again, the paralysis of intellect. We have to get rid of these thoughts. Think of this. So it demands more and more contemplation and reflection. Why the mind goes back to the same stuff again and again? Because it has imagined, it has created an image about the world outside. So even the intellect understands, we know it, but still the mind repeats. And then it rationalizes. That rationalization of any clinging, any attachment, any anxiety, any duality, any conflict is the paralysis of intellect. Now you can think that how long it will take you to reach to the highest state. It depends on you. Choice is yours. Uh, what we have been talking? No, I know, but I'm still, even if you know, then I'm repeating it. What is knowledge of the real self? What is dispassion? What is delusion? What is emotional freedom? What is the difference between the individual and the supreme consciousness? And how to remove the sorrow and the suffering from our life. So, paralyzed intellect causes endless suffering because of the mind. But we should always understand one thing, that the intellect hides, but it never dies. The intellect hides itself, but never dies. I gave an example of a tiger. Tiger can attack only in two ways, through the paws and the jaws. There is no other option for them. We have, I would say, hundreds of options. So when we have a clinging and attachment and anxiety and reaction and panic attacks, can you awaken to the intellect and find the best option that you have? How simple it is. There is a storm outside. We are standing outside. There's a big storm. We find the option. We do not fight with the storm. We move inside the home, close the door, and we are already calm. But if you try to achieve calmness in the midst of the storm, nothing is going to happen. Rather, you will create more difficult situation. My master used to give a phrase that whenever you see these movements in the mind, what you do? You hide inside the cave, allow the mind to calm down, allow the storm to calm down, and then come out. Because when you put the mind into paralysis, you paralyze the mind. The intellect will awaken. And then we have many options. Now ask a question to yourself. What an incapacity not to use intellect to end suffering. What a great fun. Mockery on our intellect. Mind does not allow the intellect to work for self-discovery. Now, can you understand the statement? I have been living loveless life for 27 years. Not me, you already know. Our dear Bill Gates says. So the mind tries to rationalize and it wants the continuity of clinging and attachment. That is why even after listening, even after understanding, the mind goes its own ways, that we have to get rid of it through contemplation, reflection, and practice. Through the understanding, we can change our weaknesses into strength. Weakness comes from the mind. We can raise our capacity, strength, ability, skill sets by the intellect. Think of it. Do we have a frequent anger, hesitation, upset reaction? Is it the habit of the mind? It is going to give you the panic attacks, and the source is definitely the attachment. We use this power of intellect in the physical well being. Always use, oh, eat this, not that, mental well being, professional life, social life. So, this intellect paralysis can be destroyed by listening daily, thinking daily, practice daily. What will happen? The knowledge will shine in the intellect and give rise to the what it gives rise to. Do you remember? It gives rise to the faith. If I ask you, do you know your house? Yes. Do you know your honey? Yes. Do you know your gender? It comes because of conviction in the intellect. And that conviction in the intellect gives rise to the faith. Huh? Give rise to the faith. Now apply the same logic here. Am I of the nature of permanent peace and happiness? So when I have 100% conviction reached by listening, contemplation, reflection, and the practice, one day the intellect says, what Gita, the famous phrase from the Gita, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. That faith transforms the mind to prevent any kind of suffering. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So when I have that tremendous faith, knowledge is realized. Knowledge of the real self is realized. So let us go a little deeper into this intellectual journey and how this intellect destroys, we can destroy the paralysis from the intellect. First factor is the power of faith. It's not blind. It's not blind faith. We observe. Now, you don't say when the tiger is going to attack you, you don't say, okay, I have a blind faith in my intellect. I will save myself. No, it's an active faith. You work on it. The honey is angry. You peace, peace. Let the peace remain inside. It's an outer situation. No, no, no. Let me maintain my awareness. Let me maintain awareness. And the ego says, "How dare my honey says this?" No, no, hold on. No, intellect says, "Hold on." Intellect says, "Hold on." No, no, no ego. Power of faith in any situation, in any given situation. So the faith means after gaining the knowledge of the real self, intellect is clear, free from the doubt, then it sticks to that idea, that notion, that knowledge. Then it says, ego, what you are doing, you will also react, and he or she will also react. Better to change that. I have an option. Intellect has an option. So when you find that you have a choice, you can make a decision. That is the second factor in the intellect. First is the power of faith. You are clear? Yes, yes, I'm clear. Power of decision. Second, now we have chosen faith instead of mental movement. You're upset in the mind. Intellect reminds you because of that faith. Ah, intellect reminds you, it's not my nature. So what I should do? It's not my nature. You're so casual. That helps you to awaken to the real self and deepen the practice of meditation. Remember, there is a slight difference between these four powers of the intellect. Four conditions, you can say: the power of faith, power of decision, or a choice. Choice of what? The intellect reminds the mind peace is your essential nature. That thought contains the knowledge. That knowledge is being expressed by the mind in difficult situations, in problems, in suffering. Third power. And then you continue with that thought that contains the knowledge resulted from the faith. So, what happens? Then now the intellect is constantly inspiring you. Here is an opportunity to evolve. Here is a bigger opportunity to evolve in a difficult situation. If I maintain my calmness, if I maintain my silence, we say silence is golden. I remember, I think it's an American proverb. Yeah. Huh? Silence is golden. If silence is golden, does not mean that I did not say you anything and now you have been continuously harassing me, humiliating me. That is not silence golden. Understand that clearly. That intellect is 100% available to us. It hides because of the mental attachment, clinging. It can return. Now, see, one master, I want to bring about the teachings of another master here. That master says that this intellect has three things. We discussed about the four powers. The intellect should always reflect that I am a human being, and the human being has an intellect, and that intellect can choose the purpose of life. And then it sticks to it. How the mind will become crazy? Think of this. You go to the store for buying a bread, and then the mind says, no, buy this pasta also, buy this sauce also. No, no, let's have this also. Same way the mind lives and thinks. You are very good. And suddenly a person says something, we are ready to react. Are you focused 100% in the word, what I'm going to do in this situation with this person? I'm honey to another person in front of me. Let me play my role. That is the meaning of a human being. So this master says, Manushyatvam Mumukshatvam. Second thing it says that this intellect can have a longing for freedom from the suffering. If that longing thought is not there for freedom, meditation doesn't succeed. Where I want to go, I should have that thought, that notion, that idea. And the third factor is that if some teacher is there who is well versed with the Eastern wisdom, who is ready to guide. Otherwise, teachers in the Eastern wisdom are always ready to guide, whether you listen it or you don't listen. So, human birth, powerful intellect to change the course of life. Mind is not going to change. That is why we have a very famous mantra, moving from the false to the truth, moving from ignorance to wisdom, moving from mortality to immortality. That is one of the most beautiful verse. The second verse by another master talks about intellect indirectly. Did I understand it? Yes, I understood the principle. Did I understand that because of the mind is causes the suffering, and the mind has a clinging and emotional dependence on the things and objects outside? Yes, 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 I have understood. Many people return to me and they said, I'm still suffering. So the master said, uh, they are foolish. I think not many friends knows. Uh, if someone says you are fool, then start ask the intellect. This word comes from India, that is in Hindi language. In Hindi language, the fool means flower. So when someone says you, oh, thank you. Thank you. Understand this clearly. Situation is outside. My mental interpretation of that situation causes the suffering. Situation will remain as it is. Situation is not going to affect me, provided I allow it to be dictated over my mind. The moment the mind dictates, intellect hides itself and we are gone. In any situation, you look at in any situation, any condition, in any relationship. There is another challenge when we say that I understand, but I cannot implement. Still, I feel I have a problem. So one thing is clear, the intellect is hidden, the mind is dictated over it. What that means, that I understand, but still I'm not able to implement it. The mind finds 1 million reasons to neglect the knowledge. It rationalizes. And that rationalizes takes us to the wrong path. It creates a different situation, reaction, anxiety, and anger, fear, and panic. Yes, another master that is very important to understand. This is what I'm taking out. I am in stress. I can quote that intellect is paralyzed. So, quoting that statement in stress, what it means. Did you understand that? No, no, I have tried hundred of times, but this guy is not understanding. That's why I became angry. No, no, I understand. What did you say? So this process of change in the mind takes time. Later on, we repent. We said, don't know why I have said this unnecessary. I can tell you, you might have realized that you became angry, you were agitated, you were upset, you said something nasty, and when you sit alone, you find I should not have said this. Don't you think so? It might have happened hundred of times. The mind has taken over at that incident, in that event. The intellect was paralyzed. So that is why the master says, I can quote hundred of things. I can go and pray to the God, please manage my anger. It is not going to happen. Manage my anxiety. It is not going to happen. I used to tell in India, the moment you go to the God, please manage my anger. The moment you go to that religious place, the God starts sleeping, not interested in meeting you. So that message comes because the mind has rationalized, reached to a stage on one hand, and the intellect claims that I have understood. So that's a part of the subtle ego. First thing. Another solution of anxiety, anger, reaction, etc. Oh, whenever you have an anxiety, drink a glass of water. We have hundreds of solutions like this, but mind is still dictating the intellect. I have to go inside. I have to understand that. No, let me take a drink. There is no other possibility. This guy is not going to change. So that guy is not going to change, but why I should resort to drinking? Intellect is a choice. That is the second thing. This master wrote these verses almost 800 years ago. Then what he says, that unless the intellect is clear, free from the doubt that permanent peace is within me, that results into faith. That faith inspires you to continue the practice, and the practice changes the mind. That is the only way. There is no other way. That freedom or success in meditation can only be attained by self discovery. without self-knowledge, it is not possible. And the intellect should take over the mind. In my thought, in my speech, in my action, I do it for about a week. For example, you live into that state of faith coming from the intellect. What is going to happen? You are preparing for a higher meditation. Whenever you will sit for meditation, the mind says, I'm ready. That will dissolve and destroy all the factors caused by the mind, results into suffering. I gave an example of, do you remember the example of Socrates, whose wife was cruel, so he used to return his home with lot of students. And she used to throw all the bowls and whatever is left in the kitchen, and lot of students got hurt, including him. A perfect example of awakened intellect. So after 10 years, I don't forget the name. He also is one of the great philosophers and a master, a disciple of Socrates. So he asked, Master, should I marry? He said, just get married. How come you say that? I have seen you. I lived with you for the last 10, 15 years, and every time we reach to your house, it becomes a battleground. So Socrates smiled and said, you marry, you get a good wife, your life will be, the life will definitely be in the material world, the worldly life will be better, and you are already awakened. But if you get a wife like me or a husband like me, whatever it is, the world will get another Socrates. You see the idea. It is expressed in simply a thought. Oh, the world will get another Socrates. Look at the Socrates perception, understanding. That comes from the faith. So who knows how many Socrates we will have. So let us start our practice. Eyes are closed. Eyes are closed.